All right, guys. Well, I am very, very excited for today's guest. You know him from his epic work at Marvel Comics. I'm talking Wolverine, Thor, the Avengers. More recently, he's had like what almost feels like a breakout year, which is crazy to say about someone who's been in the industry for as long as you have. But we've got Absolute Superman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Bug Wars, and now here to talk to me about Thundarr the Barbarian coming very soon from my friends at Dynamite Entertainment is the one and only Mr. Jason Aaron. How are you today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. I can't complain at all. So I want to dive right in because I'm relatively new to comics. I guess I should stop saying
Oh, cool.
it's been about 5 years that I've been reading comics. And when I got in, there's all the YouTubers and all the commentators who were like telling you, okay, here are the must read stories. And your name came up so often, especially at Marvel, like, oh, you got to read Thor, you got to read Wolverine. You were writing the Avengers when I started reading comics, but it was like midway through the run. So I didn't want to jump in the middle. So this year really was the first year I got to experience your work coming out monthly. And it was really fun. I have to tell you, you wrote my favorite book this year, which was the Ninja Turtles. Every month,
cool.
every month that book comes out or came out was the best book of the month for me. I guess specifically what I love about that run was just how well all of the sort of internal voices were handled. We spent a lot of time in each turtle's head. They're kind of coming from different parts of the world, trying to get that old thing back. Like we know that, after the previous era that we kind of want some sort of a return to form, but it wasn't done in like a hand waving way. We really spent the whole year kind of dealing with the different traumas and just the barriers to them really acting and behaving as true brothers in the wake of so much loss in their past. And I just thought every time they did or said something, I was like, yeah, that tracks. That totally makes sense for them. So,
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. The whole run was fun. I mean, I got to work with an incredible group of artists over the course of that. Most recently, Juan Ferreira, who was doing just completely killer work. And yeah, I think team books are hard. It's hard to juggle that many different personalities and figure out how to give everybody their moment. But I love writing families, and Turtles is both of those. So I love writing first person narration and doing kind of character focused issues. I think I'm a better character writer than I am like a plot writer. I don't think I dazzle anybody with plots. It's usually like you got to be invested about these characters and care about them, and Turtles was perfect for that, and especially what I wanted to do of kind of breaking the band up and then putting them back together, and so it afforded us the opportunity to do those first 4 issues as kind of different comics, which is kind of a callback to the days when Eastman and Laird did that. They had those kind of one shots focusing on each of the brothers. So loved doing that. Loved working with all those artists. Loved drilling down into who those guys were and kind of seeing them go in 4 different directions. And it's, it's a little the same way like writing Star Wars and writing groups of characters that we love hanging out with them as a group. They kind of don't always love hanging out with each other, right? Like part of the fun is watching how they bump against each other and grind on each other's nerves and yell and scream at each other. And part for the Turtles, like kind of one of the main points of my run was like, I compared it to kind of the Rolling Stones, the Stones as opposed to the Beatles. I was like a Beatles kid growing up, and then I became a Stones guy, I think later in life. And the Beatles, were, once they quit playing live, just played in the studio, and it was all about like perfection. Like, how can we make every part of this sound like a symphony. And the Stones were were more a live band, but also the band that on any given night you could go see them and they could sound terrible, right? Like they'd sound like some kids in their garage who'd never played together before. Like that's sort of what made them so great, is their sound was kind of always on the verge of going off a cliff,
Right.
and they kind of had to work to get to the point where everything is functioning properly. So that to me is the Turtles. Like part of what makes them work is the fact that they don't work, is the dysfunction of it and how they don't fit together. Like that's when they kind of do their best work. And part of the story was then kind of coming to understand that, of like, even as they get older and change, the pieces don't have to fit together perfectly. It's, they never have, they never will. Like them bumping elbows against each other is what makes them so dynamic a force.
For sure. Yeah, I really enjoy the friction between them. And again, like I said, like we know they're gonna work together because they're brothers. And it's like that's how family works. Like I might not always like my brother, but you better not come against my brother. Like that's just
Right.
do that.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. I can talk crap about him, but you can't.
Right. So I really love that aspect of them, but also of your run. Now I'm curious because we've got issue 12 just came out a couple weeks ago. I've gotten a bit of a preview of the next issue. So for everyone who is sad to see Jason go, I'm with you, but I will say I can confirm the Turtles are in great hands with Gene Yang and Freddie Williams. The book is still great. But I'm curious to know, like, if it was always planned for you to kind of just usher them in for this year, or was the ending kind of abrupt, or just things just changed for you?
No, this story was always a 12-issue story. So, hopefully you can tell once you read the whole thing that this is kind of it, beginning, middle, and end. So that was my original pitch, was a 12-issue story. There was a chance at one point maybe we could have figured out something more, but kind of didn't work out. So I was very happy to kind of leave it as like, no, I feel good about this story, about what I was able to do in those 12 issues. Felt like I was able to say what I wanted to say about those characters, and yeah, I'm happy to see Gene and Freddie and kind of where they go from here.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, I don't want to spoil that reveal at the last issue, but I was very excited. Very excited. I remember when they announced the creative team was changing. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of my friends, and I was like, how much you want to bet they're going to do this thing? And I was very excited to see I was kind of right. So
cool.
That's fun.
Well, I like, some of that. I mean, if you've read, part of the book, you kind of get a tease, and
right.
Is it issue 6? It's issue 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get a tease of each of those first 6 issues has a different narrator. The first 4 narrated by the brothers, and issue 5 is narrated by the new district attorney of New York, who's kind of the main bad guy. And issue 6 has a different narrator, and so part of, I like things that are surprises that come out of the blue. That's great, but I also like it when you kind of set people up, like, right, here's what could be happening, and then even when something does happen, it's maybe not in the way that you were expecting. So I like kind of doing, still having twists within twists like that. So hopefully that's what we were able to do over those last 6 issues.
Yeah, absolutely stuck the landing. No notes.
Cool.
Sir.
Thank you. Well, again, hats off to Juan. Yeah. Like so many of those issues, I just knew, like, oh, I'm going to give him this crazy double page spread, of Mikey fighting his way up the different levels of this police station, and the different, the guys on one floor have bows and arrows, and on the next floor they've got shotguns that shoot shurikens, and then the next floor they got flamethrowers, and I just knew he would go crazy and completely nail that.
Yeah, it's such a rad book. Like, and you're right, the way he used just the page layouts and how he would break panels and just kind of break the way you read comics, where every part of it is the composition.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think, to me that was a part of kind of Turtles history. Like I thought that I have a lot of love for that original Mirage Studios book, and there's so much of it where, it was a lot of big double page spreads and big action scenes, fight scenes. So we tried to lean into that as much as we could. And I love, I mean, I'm a kid of the '80s, so I loved the era of bad ninja movies, and I grew up loving Jackie Chan and Hong Kong action movies. So I definitely wanted to put as much of my love of like martial arts stories in there as I could too.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a '90s baby, and the Ninja Turtles is like my first fandom that I can remember. Like back when,
Oh yeah,
your fan club membership card was your TMNT undies, and I was proud citizen. But
do you still have those?
No, I don't still have them. Although they make them in adult sizes now. Which is
yeah, sure. Well, you can restock.
I could get restock. I don't know if my wife would like that.
Just for when you're out of town.
Right. I'll wear them to Comic-Con.
Right.
But yeah, so hats off. I really enjoyed that run. And I'm excited. I don't know how they're collecting the second volume. I got the cool hardcover for volume 1. I don't think the second volume solicited anymore.
I don't know if it has been yet. Yeah, I mean, for that first trade, there was, a trade paperback, a hardcover, I think another kind of hardcover, a big inked version of like in black and white.
Yeah.
So I don't know what all they're doing for volume 2. And then I'm pretty sure after that, there'll be a collection of kind of all 12 issues together. So I think you'll have your pick of whatever form you want to read the issue in.
Yeah, I'm hoping they collect all of that and the Casey Jones miniseries, which is still ongoing at the moment. So that'll be fun. But yeah, so you've had that going this past year, and then another big project you've had was Absolute Superman. Now I'm curious because again, a lot of people know you for your Marvel work and Star Wars and all these things where it's like you're taking these characters that people have known, but you kind of get to put your own stamp on them, especially with like how long you got to spend with each of those characters and worlds, right? With something like the Absolute Universe, it's a brand new, it's a reimagining, and not a lot of people get to reimagine Superman. There's,
right.
You kind of pick up and carry the baton a little bit further. But you get this really interesting sort of clean slate with Superman. And I'm curious to know, like, what, with that being the plate that's set in front of you, what's important to keep, and what were you excited about sort of reinventing or reimagining for the run?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a simple answer to that. I mean, that was it was important to me to not just look at it as like, okay, I'm just trying to do a dark, edgy take on Superman. I mean, I think so much of what's in the book, despite how much we change, so much of the heart of it is rooted in who that character was to Siegel and Schuster, in 1938. And like, to me, one of the key parts of it were those guys were the sons of immigrants, and they were writing Superman as this kind of idealized immigrant story. He's kind of Moses put in the basket and sent down the river, and he comes here and has this very lovely Midwestern upbringing in Kansas, and then goes to the big city and becomes the world's greatest hero. And so I was just trying to look at that from a modern perspective, and I think some of it, if you're leaning into this is at the heart of it is an immigrant story that that becomes like a harder journey for that character in 2025 even than it was in the 1930s. So I wanted every part of Superman's journey to be more difficult and challenging and traumatic for him, which which only makes it to me like more heartwarming when he still comes out of that as the hero that we know, right? When it has so many points along his journey when he could not become that guy, when he could go a very different direction, where he could be filled with hate and resentment of this planet that he's stuck on. And we see him struggle with that. We see him struggle with his anger over what happened to Krypton, over what life was like on Krypton, and what happened to it, and what his life has been like here. Every part of that journey is difficult for him. But I think the heart of it is the same. The heart of what he fights for is the same. We just shifted some of the pieces around. Instead of getting that idyllic rural upbringing in Kansas, he had that on Krypton. I loved like the transplanting that to kind of the Kryptonian countryside and giving him that kind of relationship with his parents. So it's, it was never about changing things just for the sake of changing things. I mean, I think with a new universe like this, we should do things that are different. I didn't want to do a Superman story that was just Superman fighting Lex Luthor and Lois Lane working at the Daily Planet, and kind of so many of the major pieces are already where we expect them to be. I didn't want any of the pieces to be where you expect them to be. So I think by the nature of this, we should shake a lot of that up, but also you have to do that in a way that's still about telling the story that you're trying to tell, and we're not, changing it just for the sake of changing it. So I think that's the line we continue to walk. We're kind of issue 14, I think, is the end of this kind of first big arc. Really, to me, that's like kind of all one big mega arc that's really sort of like Superman Year One, or even the Superboy story. It's kind of him on one journey over the course of those 14 issues, and kind of the big things that happen at the end of that arc, and the setup where he goes from there. But to me, another important thing with this book and kind of all the Absolute books is I love seeing these characters struggle and develop, and I have it's been important to me to not drive past any moments and potential of that, because we're used to seeing the Batman who's unafraid to jump off the roof of the building, right? Because he's done it a million times. And we're used to seeing Superman who can fly out into space and fly to other planets if he needs to. But I like seeing those characters do those things for the first time, or even work up to being able to do those things. And so I've wanted to dwell in as many of those moments and kind of themes as I could along the way. And so it'll be a long time before we see this version of Superman kind of become a finished product,
Yeah. And you spoke about not leaving the pieces where you might expect to find them, right? Like issue 1 of this opens up in Brazil, which, is just a place that, I'm not crazy familiar with outside of like travel and tourism and, the videos we see, like just whatever depictions we see of, again, the fun travel, tourism stuff. But you firmly established Superman as like a champion of the oppressed. But like, what importance did the setting have on the story for you?
Well, I mean, some of it is I knew, given kind of what Superman was doing, what Kal-El was doing once he came here, where he's kind of on the run and he's hiding, and he kind of goes to places that feel comfortable or familiar to him, that remind him of where he grew up on Krypton. So his dad was a miner, that was kind of an important piece of his legacy on Krypton. Is he's lived the suit, the rocket ship that he came in, the suit he's wearing is literally made from the crystals that his dad dug out of the ground and the dust of Krypton. And so I knew that first story he was going to be working in a mine, and we see how he's been doing this all over the world, where he pops into places and kind of trying to hide, but then also can't help but try to help the people around him, which usually gets him into trouble, and then he has to leave and run to some other spot on the other side of the planet. So I wanted to show, again, that he's doing all that, and also that this guy is, he's not just spending his time in the Midwestern United States. Like, this dude has seen, even within the 5 years that he's been here, when Absolute Superman #1 starts, he's seen more of our planet than any human being in existence, right? Like literally, he's been everywhere. He's been to places that are almost, practically inaccessible to us. They're easy for him to go. So he has been all over, and come to love and want to stay here in some ways, and in other ways has seen the worst that our planet has to offer. And he wonders, should I be trying to help these people? Are they even worth helping? Should I get the hell out of here the first chance I'm able to? Like he's still struggling with that, and just struggling with this, trying to suppress his own rage.
Right. Man. Yeah, no, Absolute Superman has been exciting. All of the Absolute universe has been. I read books from week to week, and quite often I'm like, all right, this one I'm gonna have to wait for the trade. This one I can't afford to pick up, and so on. And people will just be in the comments like, all right, you're sleeping on this. You need to pick this one up. And Absolute Superman is one of those that everybody is like, what, you're tripping, like read this book. So then when I go on DC Universe and I'm like reading it, I'm like, dang, they were right. Absolutely right.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. And if, it still feels like we're kind of just getting started. Like I said, it feels like we're kind of just hitting the end of the first arc, and then things will change and shift. The supporting cast shifts again. It shifts a bit. We'll bring in some new villains. Superman, part of his status quo, changes in huge ways, and I want that to continue to be the case. I want this character, this book, to feel settled at any point, anytime soon. It's going to continue to be the possibility of dramatic changes for this character as he develops.
Nice. Speaking of dramatic changes, the book that feels the most different from anything out there is Bug Wars. And I opened it up. Lucky me, I picked up the trade. And so we've got this. I'm hooked off of this intro.
I want it right here.
Oh, nice. I'm hooked off the intro from an entomologist from NC State University, which is my mother's alma mater.
Cool.
But also he's a YouTuber. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Adrian Smith. He's like a bug influencer, basically. He's got does great bug videos online, and has his own YouTube channel. And some of it's just him going in his backyard and kind of showing, this is what I found.
Right. There are kids. I'm a youth minister, and there are definitely kids that need to see that channel. I know would be interested in that. So I got to bookmark that for them. I'll be the hero on Sunday. But with Bug Wars, I've heard it described as like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids meets Game of Thrones. And I didn't quite get it until I got it. And I read just the first issue was like, you get dropped straight into this war that's going on between the ants and the beetle people. And then you kind of zoom out, go from the backyard into the house, and you meet this family, who's had this tragic event go on in their lives, and they're trying to sort of move on after tragedy. And, there's two brothers. One is like scarred by the tragedy, like super scarred,
right?
Almost demented, almost in the way like Sid from Toy Story.
Sure.
And then you got the other brother who's kind of following in the dad's footsteps, super into entomology, and basically kind of falls into, I guess we could call it magic portal, and, gets shrunk to bug size. And now it's kind of drafted into this war, into this society, and just all calamity ensues. But for me, I think, I guess it's world building. The world building is what caught me on it. And, I guess it helps that it opens up with a map. And so that's fun. Right. But I think what I was really stricken by was just how you fall in and you're like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Why are these people at war? Why is it so brutal? Why do they hate each other? And now it's like, oh, I am now shrunk down to this level, and I'm a part of it too. I love that. What was the inspiration for the series?
Yes, it kind of, the roots of that go back to when I was a little kid. That, like the map that's in the front of the trade, that's my backyard from when I was 10 years old. So that's the yard. That's the house I think of the most from my childhood. I mean, we moved around quite a bit, but that's the house I think of, and that backyard and those woods around it. This was in the country in Alabama, in a little place called Piney Woods, Alabama, outside Jasper. So I loved that house, loved running through those woods, making up stories. That was the age I was at when I was falling in love with comics, when I discovered Conan novels by Robert E. Howard. So much of the stuff that were, so important to me in my childhood continue to have, to be greatly important to me today. Like, you can kind of see the roots of my career as a comic book writer in that backyard, in that house. And part of the stuff that I was into is I was always fascinated by those kind of stories of people shrinking down and going on adventures, and then also those stories of kind of tiny civilizations, civilizations of tiny people that live beneath the floorboards of your house or in the walls, or in the grass beneath your feet. So I love the idea of doing both of those kind of stories together. And this is just like you said, it's the darker Game of Thrones version of that.
I was trying to think of the book. Is it The Borrowers?
Yeah, there's The Borrowers, and the Littles was a Saturday morning cartoon when I was a kid. I loved DC did a book called Sword of the Atom back in the 80s when I was first getting into comics, where the Atom gets stuck at his small size, and he discovers this like kingdom of kind of tiny barbarians in the jungles and in Brazil, I think. And he's riding frogs and fighting snakes, and I've just kind of always been fascinated by those stories, and I've kind of for years I've wanted to do something along those lines.
Yeah.
At one point when I was doing Avengers, I kind of had an idea for an Ant-Man story I wanted to do, and then I realized, no, I think I'm going to hang on to this stuff and do it as a creator-owned book. And like you said, my favorite part of it too is the world building and doing deep dives, and that, our trade's pretty huge because each issue of the book was filled with back matter, where we'd have kind of excerpts from one of the characters' journals, where it's details about the culture of the spider witches and the ant imperium and the beetle riders and maggot monks and all these different factions of tiny people who live among the bugs. And I love that. I love diving into all that of like, what do these people eat, and what are their marriage customs, mating customs, or what are the laws in beetle territory, and what's up with the sorcery of the spider witches, and love exploring all that stuff. We kind of this first trade is book one. It was 6-issue miniseries, which is kind of one story in and of itself, but also ends on a big teaser and kind of sets up where things go from there. And my plan is to do tons of different stories within this world. I think there's possibility for so much. There's kind of stuff we can do with this family, the Slaymaker family, who have a history with the yard. And then there's also, stories about the different mites that we meet. And so, that trade's out now. And then in January, we're doing a Bug Wars Spider Witch special, which is like an anthology, oversized anthology issue with different stories, all of them focused on the spider witches, who are kind of the sexiest and most devious and most mysterious of all the mites. And that'll act as kind of a bridge between book 1 and 2. There'll be stories kind of from in the present day and the past, stuff that kind of teases where we're going and gives you a better view of life in the yard. and then book 2 will be coming out in next summer is the plan. So yeah, even if you pick up the trade for issue 1 and you want to write for the trade for or for book 1 and you want to write for the trade for book 2, I encourage you to go to the comic book store in January to pick up that Bug Wars special, because it's not going to be included in the book 2 trade.
Gotcha.
We'll probably do multiple specials kind of interspersed between the different volumes, and then eventually down the road we can collect those together. But for now, if you want to make sure you're getting every piece of the puzzle, you'll have to go to the comic book store to grab the Spider Witch special.
Nice. So again, great plug for you guys to go find a local comic shop. I think comicshoplocator.com is still a thing for now.
I believe it is, yeah.
Nice. And if you're in the Raleigh area like I am, you can visit Fight or Flight Comics inside the Triangle Town Center Mall. You don't got to go all the way upstairs to Barnes & Noble. The comic shop is better.
Cool.
So that's where you can pick up Spider Witch special. Now, you mentioned that this book has a sort of more decidedly mature Game of Thrones dark side of kind of tint to it.
Right.
Why was that?
I like I said, I liked the idea of this setup. It sounds like on paper this would be a kid's story. This sounds like, is this Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? But I wanted to do a dark fantasy story, so I like, like flipping your expectations of that. This is kind of, I'm doing with Mahmoud Asrar, who's an amazing artist, and he and I worked together for a couple of years at Marvel on Conan stories. We did Conan the Barbarian and King Conan. And loved doing that. It was a Marvel book, so there were always kind of restrictions we had to work within in terms of violence and subject matter. And part of us, after we were finishing that up, I talked to him and said, why don't we do our own fantasy story? And if we do it in Image, there's nobody can tell us, no, you can't do that. Like, we can do the book exactly the way we want it. If we want it to be dark and violent, it will be. If we want there to be sexuality in it, there will be. Nobody's going to say no. So that's the other part of it, is us kind of cutting loose in the way we want to. And, I love this world because just that idea of the metaphor of, for me as a kid in that yard, it very much felt like I could walk out of my back door, and whatever kind of fantasy kingdom I wanted that yard to be, it could be Middle Earth. It could be, the Hyborian age of Conan. It could be the wasteland of the Road Warrior. Like whatever, like you're only limited by your imagination in terms of what you could find back there. But I also like looking at it, now I'm not a kid anymore and still doing the kind of dark and scary version of that. And this is, the story of Slade, who's the main character, is one of those kind of kid having to grow up quickly, to survive this, and, really at the end of the day, save his family.
Right. Man, it's really fun. So if you guys have not checked out Bug Wars, please go get that volume 1, but then just go ahead and put it on your pull list at your LCS. That way you get the Spider Witch special, and you get everything that's going to be in volume 2 and beyond without having to go scour the internet for it. Because it seems like there's fewer and fewer places online to catch up in single issues if you do miss out.
Sure. Just tell your LCS you want anything Bug Wars, because we'll be, it'll be numbered. We're not numbering it like an ongoing series. Yeah. We'll be doing it as a kind of a series of one shots and minis. So that's our plan.
Nice. So, you unlocked a core memory in my head. You're talking about, just all the little shows where it's like there's little people and small civilizations. And that reminded me of when I was a kid, Cartoon Network did like a big primetime airing of the Fleischer Studios Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, yeah.
And
I don't think I've ever seen that. Yeah.
It's really fun. Like, it's just, I don't know, big dude gets tied down by little tiny people and they're attacking him, kind of like, it's a vague memory. What I
Yeah.
remember most about it is the commercial for it.
Mm.
Like they were just Gulliver's Travel. So I just typed it in Google and it's just, I don't know if it'll take me too long to try to pull it up and show you. But
Is this like from the 30s, like that
yeah,
kind of era of Fleischer
1939.
Studios?
Hmm. And so it's released by Paramount Pictures. But yeah, it's like, oh, that's crazy. Wikipedia just has the whole movie
Oh,
on the Wikipedia page. So watch the whole hour feature film.
oh yeah, I see that.
Right. But
Cool. I will definitely check that out. Like I've been devouring as part of my Bug Wars research, like reading any kind of stories of people shrinking or groups of tiny people that I've never seen before, because there's so many different versions of that over the eons. And yeah, I also, part of working on Absolute Superman, like pulled out those Fleischer Studios Superman cartoons, which are still like have held up so well. Those cartoons are so incredibly gorgeous.
I was watching The Iron Giant with my wife the other night, and even that, like being such a callback to that specific animation style, it's really cool.
Yeah, sure. Great Superman callback too.
Right, for sure. But so speaking of Cartoon Network and playing things from the 30s, um, we've got Thundarr the Barbarian coming up, which for me, Thundarr the Barbarian, I would see every now and then. I was a Cartoon Network kid, but Cartoon
Yeah.
Network would play like those older Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like reruns during the daytime. So like your grandma might have been watching soaps, you might have been able to sneak into a different room. And you never knew, like it might have been Johnny Quest, it might have been a Godzilla short. But Thundarr was definitely one of those that it would kind of rotate between. And so like there's like maybe I got the intro, right?
Right.
And there's just like little pieces like that are in my head of what Thundarr was. But I'm curious as to like what your exposure to Thundarr had been.
I mean, I was the perfect age for it, so I watched it when it was first airing on Saturday morning back in the early '80s,
Mm.
and it was my favorite cartoon. It only lasted for 2 seasons, and I think it reran for a little bit after that. So I don't remember exactly what year I was first watching it, but yeah, it was me, getting up in the morning with my bowl of Fruity Pebbles and just watching cartoons all day. So Dungeons and Dragons, that cartoon I loved, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Mighty Orbots was a great one that's kind of forgotten. But Thundarr was my favorite out of all of them. Loved that cartoon. It kind of took so many of the things that I was into at the time and smashed them all together. So again, I was the point in life when I was discovering Conan stories. My favorite, if you'd asked me what my favorite movie was, it was Road Warrior. I loved post-apocalyptic stories, loved Planet of the Apes, and Thundarr's those two things smashed together. It's a sword and sorcery show, but it's in the ruined, landscape of human civilization. So it was a very like action driven show, which there weren't a ton of those, on Saturday morning back in the day. So I absolutely loved it. I think if you've never seen it, if you just watch those opening credits, like the greatest opening credits, in animated history, like I think I don't know how you could watch those opening credits and not want to watch that show.
No, it's true.
Because it does such a great job of setting up what it is. And it's no wonder that the show was so dynamic and memorable, because it was created by like a who's who of comic book legends, and that Steve Gerber was the main brainchild of it, who of course is the guy who brought us Howard the Duck, probably most memorably, tons of great comics for Marvel and DC over the years. And then the original character designs were by the great Alex Toth. And then he stepped aside and they brought on Jack Kirby do more designs and layouts, and there's a huge Kirby influence you can see in the show, and a lot of characters are like clearly Kirby designs, and they look like they could have been in Asgard or, New Genesis, like stepped right out of a Kirby landscape. So incredible pedigree of comic book creators who brought the show to life. Surprisingly, Thundarr has never existed in comic book form until now. So, 40 years later, we're finally bringing that character to life in a comic book, and that was one of those jobs. I mean, I told Nick Barucci at Dynamite, who I've known for years, and he's we've talked before about he's wanted me to do work for them, and it kind of never worked out. And now that Dynamite's been doing all these Hanna-Barbera books, which have all been great.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Nick, well, if you get the rights to Thundarr, let me know. Which it's not Hanna-Barbera, it's Ruby Spears, but it was kind of it's all under the same umbrella these days, I think. So, sure enough, Nick called me a week or two later and had figured it out, and so I knew that was one of those jobs where I'm like, well, yeah, if this is going to happen, I very much want to be the guy to make it happen, because my love for that show runs so deep.
So with something like that, does it feel like pressure to be the first one bringing it into comics, or is it just like, I got a full sandbox and toy box full of toys to play with?
I mean, to me, it always feels it's always some of both, I guess, but I don't ever really worry about the pressure. I mean, doing that first Star Wars book at Marvel was pressure, and doing Absolute Superman is pressure. But when I sit down to do my job, I don't feel that at all. I mean, I'm not thinking about anybody else out there, anybody who's going to read this. I'm just thinking about what book do I want to see. Mm-hmm. So on Thundarr, that's easy, because it's, again, this world and these characters, I know them so well, and I've loved them for so long, and they were such a foundational part of kind of my childhood, and the things that became like touchstones for me in terms of what I like entertainment wise, and what I've been attracted to as a writer over the course of my career. Thundarr is a big part of that. So yeah, when I sit down to write something like that, there's no pressure. There's just excitement of like, the only pressure is I'm trying to do a book that's going to please 10-year-old me. Mm-hmm. That's really the only audience that I'm thinking about at the end of the day.
I guess I can scratch off this question I've got here, because I was curious about introducing a classic property to a new audience. It's never been in comics before. The show's not coming on TV, although it is available on YouTube, because I found the intro, and the intro was so intriguing that I bought the first episode of the show. Cool. So I get to watch that when this is over. But again, for someone like me who's like, okay, I know this is a thing. I know Conan, and I know like different magical elements and stuff. Like this has a bunch of elements that I'm familiar with, but I don't know the thing as a whole. Like, how is it bringing something that is so loved by you to someone who probably hasn't seen or heard of it?
I mean, I think that's great. That gets me excited. I mean, I feel like whatever book I've done over the course of my career, whether that's Superman, which, how many Superman stories have there been over the course of 90 years? Lots. And that character is as well known as any fictional character in existence.
Right.
Turtles are so well known, and people know those characters from so many different mediums and iterations over the years. And Thor, Thor's history goes back to the Viking sagas. Like these are characters that have a high level of visibility. And chances are, when you're doing a new comic book story with any of those characters, there are people who come to the table that already have a high level of investment. Yeah. Right? Like, you don't have to sell them on this character. They come to the table already bought in to some point. But I think you can't think about any of that stuff when you sit down to write a comic. You got to write it like somebody just woke up from a coma and they've never heard of Superman, and you hand them this comic, like everything they need to know needs to be on the page, like why they should be invested or excited, or why the hell they should care about this character. You have to show your work in the story. You got to make them want to come back for issue 2. So you can't just rely on, well, everybody comes to the table already 80% invested. I got to assume you're at 0%. Maybe you're even negative. Maybe you even don't like this character and I got to win you over. I think that's the way you always have to approach it. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of this cartoon. I've watched all the episodes, grew up with them. I think there will be their references to or characters in this that'll pop up in this book that are references from specific episodes. So if you're a fan like me, you'll recognize these guys, these specific mutants, and these specific wizards, and maybe we reference specific episodes, and you'll get that. If you've never seen the show before, if you've never heard of it, I mean, I encourage you to go watch it. Like I said, at least those opening credits. But you can also be guaranteed we'll do our version of the opening credits in the book. So everything you need to enjoy this world should be in the pages of the comic if I'm doing my job properly.
For sure. So again, I'll just keep beating this drum, right? The opening credits of Thundarr the Barbarian, like Jason said, it really encapsulates everything the show is, right? And I love how you guys borrow from that for the solicit text for the issue. That was great. Now, there's I'm pulling this up because if I'm remembering correctly, one of the covers for issue 1 will be the first blind bag variant that Dynamite has done. And there's a bunch of different covers. We've got Francesco Mattina. I really love the A cover by Michael Cho, which certainly kind of, it feels like Jack Kirby reborn. Like even the there's a street sign on this cover, and it looks like it's broken off, but it would have said Kirby Street. That's great. But there's a cover by Joseph Michael Linzer. Bjorn Berens has a cover. Rob Liefeld has a cover. There's a blank sketch cover. And then there's a bunch of incentives and stuff in between. So the final order cutoff for issue 1 of Thundarr the Barbarian is on December 22nd. So you got some time to call your local comic shop to make sure you secure however many blind bags or variant covers that you would like. And then the issue will release on January 21st. Which is dope for me. It's the day before my birthday. But
oh, cool. Well, but the Bug Wars Spider Witch special comes out a week later, which is on my birthday. So maybe we can have a joint birthday party somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll do the joint birthday party on StreamYard. Works for me. But yeah, what's cool for me is, again, checking out Thundarr, and it's like this really interesting blend of like sword and sorcery and like sci-fi and magic, and like you said, the post-apocalyptic landscape. Like there's just a lot to play with there. And it reminds me a lot of the different shows from that era, but like Space Ghost, where it's like it's so far in the future, but also kind of looks old. And it's like, I don't know, it's murky, like when this is happening. Well, in Thundarr, it tells you specifically
2,000 years. Yeah, 2,000 years in the future.
2,000 years after 1994, which is like, that's crazy. But yeah, so we get that. But there's just such a timeless look to the settings and just the creatures you come across. Even I'm a nerd, but like when we're riding horses and it's like the horses stay in one place, but the landscape shifts. Like playing a scroller video game. there's so much to like.
Well, look, it's the '80s, so they definitely reuse a lot of bits of animation, and there's a lot of shots of them riding their horses.
Yeah.
So you gotta buy into the '80s-ness of it, and the violence is hokey at times because Steve Gerber complained in interviews back in the day about the restrictions they had to work under for Saturday morning. Thundarr carries a sword, but you don't really see him like whacking people with it. Like he can't really, do much with it. It's easier for him to cut a tree that falls and lands on somebody than to him use his sword to actually attack somebody. So we do, I feel like this comic is not me trying to do, like a dark modern reimagining of Thundarr.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I felt very precious when I sat down to write it. If I didn't know how to do it in a way that doesn't feel like a continuation of that same world. This is the same world, same continuity. This is like just a new episode of the show. But we push the violence a little more than they were able to push it. And we try to bring some more emotional weight to it as well, and kind of what the characters are going through, and then also kind of digging into their history a little bit and showing, Thundarr in that point in time of the show is he's basically Conan with like a magic lightsaber and the most unstoppable, ferocious, badass barbarian you've ever met. But maybe he wasn't always that way. So we'll flash back and kind of see a part of his history when he was in a very different sort of situation. And that's part of when he first met Ariel and when he first met Ukla and first got his sun sword, which was a story the show never told.
Mm-hmm.
But Gerber definitely had, like, part of that mythology was sketched out somewhere because he talked about it in interviews, and they give you hints of it in those opening credits, because those opening credits, some of the bits you see are cut from various episodes. Other bits are exclusive to those credits that were never part of the show. And so we're referencing some of those moments, some of those glimpses, of Thundarr breaking his chains and what his situation was before he became the barbarian that we know. So we'll also be exploring that in the book.
Nice. Now, it sounds like you're exploring a lot, and you're excited about it. This is a passion project of yours. Was it conceived as an ongoing? Do you have like an end in mind?
Yeah, this is a 6-issue story, so we haven't talked about anything beyond that. But we'll see. But yeah, this one this is a very specific story, kind of one huge threat that Thundarr faces, bigger than anything he's ever faced before. That speaks to various fundamental parts of his mythology, from his own origin to that fateful day in 1994 when human civilization changed forever. Like, our story goes to all those moments.
Nice. Now, I will say, this book is following in a line of really awesome Dynamite licensed books from Warner Brothers. If I pan out a little bit further, they've had the Disney stuff for the last couple of years, but this whole era with Thundercats and Silverhawks and Johnny Quest, Space Ghost and Powerpuff Girls, and now this
Herculoids.
Herculoids.
I love the Herculoids.
But like, I grew up, like, I was a cartoon kid, and I grew up with cable TV, so we had cartoons all the time. And my wife makes fun of me because there's so many points in life that I can recall based on like what was on TV at the time.
Sure.
Oh, this would have been at 5 o'clock because Pokemon was on. But it's just like, it is so fun to be living in this time period where all of this stuff can live again, and you read it at your own pace because it's a comic book. If you want to sit and like pour over it, you don't have to like set your VCR and hope that it recorded when you get home, right? Like, I love it. I love it.
My son has no understanding of that idea of like, no, you got to be home at this certain time on this specific day to watch that thing. or if you're not, like, you got to have the VCR set
Right.
to record it. Otherwise, you're not going to see it.
My dad taped over my Flintstone Kids
Oh no.
VHS. I was so upset. He taped over over my Flintstone Kids.
I've got my office is in the basement of my house, and it's full. I like to work in a cocoon where I'm literally just like, sealed in by trade paperbacks on this wall, and these are all long boxes. And over there, I've also got under my TV, I brought a bunch of old VHS tapes of stuff I recorded when I was a kid, with movies, TV shows, cartoons, football games. So plus like cassette tapes and there's a Thundarr VHS over there. So yeah, I'm almost jealous of kids today, because you do have so much at your fingertips in a way we absolutely did not, when I was a kid. Even, you say being able to watch cartoons every day, like I couldn't do that. I was in the era of Saturday morning, and then eventually you started to get some cartoons like in syndication that you could watch in weekday afternoons, which I thought was the most amazing thing ever. In an era before Cartoon Network existed, where then, oh my God, you can watch them all day, every day. So yeah, there's so much stuff at your fingertips these days, but man, so much of even now, I'm 50 years old, but like so many of the things that resonate so deeply with me are those same things that I loved when I was a kid,
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm still basically making a living off some of those things. I played with Star Wars figures in my yard as a kid. I wrote Star Wars. Like, I was laid in that backyard reading Conan stories and wrote Conan, and I'm watching Thundarr on Saturday mornings and reading Superman comics. And so it's, I don't know what my point is, other than I am still surrounded by all of those things. So it's I met Ray Bradbury at a signing one time, and one of his pieces of advice was never throw anything away, which becomes unwieldy at a point, and if you become a hoarder. But I do think there's truth in that, of just kind of hanging on to those things that are important to you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at your shelves behind you, right? That some of it's like the greatest hits of your work directly behind you.
Yeah, this is mostly like, or over here is like mostly my stuff. And there's other shelves over here.
I've been resisting the urge. We moved in this house almost exactly a year ago, and I've never wanted my room to feel like a dungeon. And so I try to, like, that wall is blank, but every other wall is like half shelves, and I got art on the wall. And I've resisted the urge to this point, but I think I'm going to get rid of that TV and just do floor to ceiling shelves just on this back wall. And
sure.
And then I'll have to figure out how to limit myself.
You can't have too many shelves.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. So, well, Jason Aaron, you, sir, are living the dream. I think that's the point you were arriving at. You are living the dream.
The dream of a child who grew up in the 1980s. That's the dream I'm living.
Right. But I'm really excited again for all the stuff you've got coming. Absolute Superman, Bug Wars is probably the top of my list now that you're done with Ninja Turtles. And then, I'm really excited about Thundarr as well. Is there anything else that you can tease that you've got coming up in the near future?
I don't think so. I've got right now coming out from Marvel, there's one more issue of the Uncle Scrooge book I've been doing. It's a 4-issue mini-series, Uncle Scrooge, Earth's Mightiest Hero, which is a follow-up to the Infinity Dime story I did last year, and that's been super fun. Infinity Dime was my love letter to Don Rosa, Uncle Scrooge stories, and it was drawn by a list of great classic Italian Uncle Scrooge artists. This new book is mostly drawn by Marvel artists.
Gotcha.
And that's been huge amount of fun. I've got a couple other things that I'm working on or about to work on that are still secret, but I don't think there's anything else I can tease just yet. I'll say in that, like you said at the beginning, I don't disagree that even though I've been doing this 25 years now, this past year or so has kind of felt like a breakout, and that I kind of moved away from Marvel and was able to do a bunch of things that I think surprised people, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Uncle Scrooge and Superman. So I've enjoyed that, and I can say there'll definitely be a couple more surprises coming your way next year. And also, like I said, more Bug Wars, and then also working on another creator-owned thing. Though no release date like penciled in for that yet. So yeah, I'm keeping busy.
Nice. Well, you guys will have to stay tuned to see what else Jason is up to. If they want to follow your story along with you, where can they find you? Can they follow you online anywhere?
Yeah, the best place is my Substack newsletter. Just Google my name, Substack, and you can subscribe. And I send it out. Kind of when I want to. I don't do it every week or even every month. It's sort of when I have something to announce or talk about, and that's you get insights to what I do and what I'm working on and what's coming up and where I'm going to be convention wise and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, I will leave a link to Jason's Substack in the description of this video and in the show notes if you're listening on audio. Jason, of course, you are welcome back anytime. And you guys out there are welcome back to listen anytime. Just hit that subscribe button before you go, and you'll get notified the next time. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace. All right.